Hello everyone. Little extra for our YouTube and Rumble community. Second news update. I promised in the beginning of the week that instead of evening news live streams, I'll try to make walk-in talks whenever there is time for that. And well, right now I am in International Exposition Center in Moscow. I had some stuff to do in this area, and I decided to came into this area and record the second news updates. Today is of course 30th of May. Now it's about 6 o'clock in the evening, and as you can see, quite a busy area, by the way, as it is always. A popular place among locals, tourists, and most likely, if and when you will visit Moscow, you will also come to this place. In Russian, it's VDNH, by the way. It's International Exposition Center, and so let's go through some news now, and I will try to show you some areas meanwhile while you're walking around this place. And I'm gonna start with the progress of special military operation. RIA Novosti reported today, and many other media outlets in Russia, that Russian armed forces liberated Kondrashovka settlement in the Kharkov region. Information is confirmed by Defense Ministry of Russia. And overall, during this week, Russian armed forces liberated 13 settlements in zone of special military operation, which is quite a successful week, I will say, although not that different from previous week and the previous week and week before that. I'm reporting basically on daily basis that Russian armed forces liberating more and more settlements, more and more areas. So last week, 13 settlements were liberated all along the front line. Also, interesting news that a Ukrainian draft memorandum on conflict resolution includes provisions for a ceasefire on the land, at the sea, and in the air, and for its monitoring, Kiev regime expects international partners to be engaged, international partners of Kiev regime, I guess, and that is, of course, we should mean a coalition of willing. This creation of regimes, European regimes that are controlled by globalists. Of course, you can recognize that construction. It's Ostankino, one of the tallest constructions in Europe, if not the tallest one. And it's a TV center, by the way, part of media and communication infrastructure. And so, well, it is interesting. It is interesting that Kiev regime, of course, under advice of its globalist masters, is still focused on this topic of 30-day ceasefire, which is not going to happen. Not at least before Kiev regime will agree on Russian terms for ceasefire, and Kiev regime will learn what these terms are on 2nd of June, if negotiations will take place in Istanbul. Russian side already stated that delegation will be there. It's up to Kiev regime, which did not yet officially confirm that it will send its representatives. Some hints, but no official statements that Kiev regime will send its delegation. They still are demanding Russian side to publish Russian memorandum, Russian vision of de-escalation, and Russian reading of their roadmap towards the peace. And the press spokesman of the Russian president, as I reported in today's first update during the live stream, was very clear that Moscow not considering discussing these topics in a public sphere. These direct talks between Moscow and Kiev were organized exactly to sit down and have some serious, meaningful talk, discussion. And so maybe Kiev regime will use this to basically avoid sending delegation. Let's go other side, because it's clearly some sort of a concert down there, and it's gonna be very noisy there. And so yes, Russian side is ready. Kiev regime is focused in its memorandum on a 30-day ceasefire, but it is not yet clear if Zelensky's regime even be able, or even will have authorization from globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe, UK, France, Germany, others, to participate. We will find out in a few days time. Let's continue with some more news. Well, interesting report that I share also on my Telegram and Twitter X page, that according to Turkish foreign minister, there might be talks in Istanbul between President of US Trump, President of Russia Putin, President of Turkey Erdogan, and puppet of globalist Zelensky. Interesting announcements. I did not see any comments yet from Russian side about preparations for such a meeting to take place with participation of Russian president. And I don't think Putin will seriously consider at this point to travel to Turkey to participate in meaningless meeting, gathering. So therefore, initiative is understandable. Turkey wants to be part of this negotiating process and play some key role in it. Idea is understandable, but realization is pretty much questionable. I don't think it is going to happen. And when it comes to this topic of Istanbul talks, me personally, quite skeptical that we will see some major breakthroughs as a result of talks between Moscow and Kiev. Most likely globalists eventually will derail all this process, and Moscow will have no option but to further accelerate, basically, special military operation and do whatever is needed to be done to free people in this former Soviet Republic on the name of Ukraine from Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, and to liberate historical Russian territories. These people are Russian people, part of Russian world, and these territories are Russian territories. And as I said many times before, special military operation might end either on the borders with the Western Ukraine or on the borders with Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, and Romania. They will find out. We will find out. And what else have I bookmarked for today's second update? Well, interesting news, by the way, from UK, that London will significantly step up offensive cyber operations against Russia and China. This was stated by UK's Defense Secretary John Haley on Thursday, following the inauguration of their country's new cyber and electromagnetic command. And last time I checked, UK had not declared war on Russia officially, although of course UK is engaged in proxy war against Russia directly, but war was not declared officially. And I don't know what is wrong with this person, Defense Secretary of UK, but he's openly saying, acknowledging basically that UK is engaged in cyber attacks on Russia and cyber terrorism. That's what it is, right? Of course, Russia will take in account this information. Russian side knew anyways, and countermeasures will be implemented, and the citizens of UK should not be mad at us on Russia or Russian people for retaliating on hostile actions of their own government, right? They should address these major topics, including criminal activity of British so-called aristocracy, British so-called royal family, British so-called elites, because otherwise this extreme behavior of London will continue, and it's not going to end well for United Kingdom. I can say that. I can predict that with the most certainty. I still struggle with pronunciation of certain words, by the way. And unfortunately, my language is, even if it's getting a little better and better as time goes by, it's still nowhere close to the place that I will feel comfortable. But hopefully I will get there at some point. A few more news, dear friends. Few more news, and well, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić reacted on information from Russian Foreign Intelligence Service that a number of Serbian companies are engaged in certain schemes to provide weapons for a Kyiv regime, and are making money basically on big money on that. And Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić stated that he would order that contracts not be executed if there is a suspicion that the weapons could end up in a Ukrainian conflict zone. Okay, good statement, expected statement, but I mean, it is unfortunate to learn that Serbian companies were... Oh, it's raining, by the way. Okay. And well, it was, sad to learn that quite a number of Serbian companies were engaged in this scheme, and still are engaged, I guess, to provide Kyiv regime with weapons through different third parties. And I can give you some more precise information on that. For example, according to press bureau of the Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation, Serbian defense enterprises, despite Belgrade's declared neutrality, continue to supply munition to a Kyiv regime, in particular to cover for anti-Russian actions. Is a simple scheme using fake and user certificates and intermediary countries. This we are explained. Among their later, the press bureau noted most often NATO countries appear, primarily Czech Republic, Poland, and Bulgaria, and recently exotic option involving some African states. So, what can I say? Unfortunate news there. We consider Serbia as a friendly country. We consider Serbian people as our brothers and sisters, and to learn that their military-industrial complex is engaged in killing Russian citizens, that's just too bad, man. Too bad. But, maybe things will change if Serbian president will pay a little more attention to what's going on in his own country, right? And if he was honest, really, he would make sure that no Serbian weapons are ending up in the hands of Russian enemies. But he clearly did not care. I mean, let's be real here. He clearly did not care, and most likely he had this news, his knowledge before Russia's foreign intelligence service make it public. Let's see how will things develop in the future, but it's a sad news. And what else do I have here? The volume of American arms deliveries to Taiwan. So volume of US arms deliveries to Taiwan during Donald Trump's current presidential term is expected to exceed the volume during the American leaders' first team. Reuters report citing officials, excuse me, and I can give you some numbers. According to agency's calculations, during the Trump's first term, United States approved their arms sales to Taiwan worth about 18.3 billion. By comparison, under former President Joe Biden, total volume of approved sales was about 8.4 billion. So quite a difference, and there are still quite a lot of money. Which means that US is arming Taiwan as its proxy and preparing it to share the fate of Ukraine, basically, right? We all understand that it's only a matter of time, and Taiwan gonna get sacrificed by globalists, by neocons, and they will use this to harm China as much as they possibly can. Now it's up to Taiwanese people. Would they allow their government, which is clearly a puppet of anti-Chinese or Western alliance, to sacrifice millions and millions of Taiwanese? And no wonder, by the way, relationships between China and US are deteriorating on a regular basis. And for example, I have this news that the trade negotiations between the US and China have stalled, and there may necessitate the intervention of the country's leaders. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has stated, and well, I guess he meant by this that Trump is such a great deal maker that he might get engaged with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping and resolve the issues that countries are facing, which is of course false narrative, by the way. Until now, Trump didn't demonstrate, with the exception of maybe a couple of examples, did not really demonstrate that he's capable of much, really, right? And just take a look what he did in last few days, by the way. While insulting Russian people, Russian president, he quite effectively derailed any potential rapprochement between Russia and US. Not necessarily rapprochement, but at least a little recovery of the almost completely destroyed relationships, right? And does it looks like Trump is an expert in making deals and negotiations? No, he is not, right? So even if he will make a call with Xi Jinping, he's not going to resolve nothing, because it's not about personal relationships and personalities. It's about national interests, and I'm not sure Trump really understands what US national interests are, while other leaders that he has to, communicate with, those other leaders most likely do. And I'm saying so because it was definitely, and it is still definitely not in US interests or interests of US citizens, White House to continue further escalation with Moscow, but Trump is definitely on that path, isn't it? So, and it is not in US's interest to act as an Israeli proxy, by the way, on the world stage. And it is not in US's interest to be engaged in all sorts of wars worldwide and now to get prepared to attack Iran. Where is the interest of US citizens there? There is none, right? Anyways, meanwhile, relationships between Russia and China are getting greater and greater, which is good news for sure. Good news for both countries, by the way, and for global security and safety, I will say, global economy. And let me give you a little more information on that. Russia and China are implementing or preparing to launch more than 80 priority joint projects with a total value of approximately $200 billion across a wide range of sections, according to Russian ambassador to China, Igor Margulov. For the past 15 years, China has been Russia's largest trading partner, while our country ranks fifth among China's foreign trade partners. In 2024, bilateral trade reached a new record amounting to $245 billion in a year, which is quite impressive, but this number will further grow, obviously, and give it another 3 to 5 years, and trade between Russia and China will be around 350-400 billion USD, potentially even higher, because there is a great potential, isn't it, to further increase cooperation. And what about these 80 projects, combined projects, that are either already in a working or will be implemented soon? I mean, these projects worth 200 billion, which is also says something, isn't it? So good news here about increased cooperation between Russia and China. And also one more news about some economical stuff. The importance of the Russian ruble international economic relations will increase, according to a US economist, director of the Center of the Sustainable Development at Columbia University, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. He had an interview with TASS News Agency, and the agency itself is publishing some episodes from this interview, and eventually full interview most likely will be published. Sachs noted during this interview that just as the world has moved towards a multipolarity, it is now also moving towards a multi-currency format of relations in the economic sphere. The ruble and the rupee, Indian rupee, I guess that's what he meant, the yuan, Chinese yuan, will have a more significant international role than before, Sachs noted. Commenting on the future of the dollar in a global economy, the professor stressed that its share in international finance and transactions, be it settlements, currency reserves, or investments, will decrease, which is already happening, by the way. This process is already underway and only accelerating. So in the essence, we have already entered the period of transition to a multi-currency system, Sachs stated. And well, I guess he is correct. I mean, I'm not an expert in economics or finances, but that's what I was saying for quite a while, isn't it? And this process of de-dollarization will continue, although, by the way, when it comes to increased role of Russian rubles, maybe because I'm not an expert in economics, I don't really understand, or I'm not that sure, to be more precise, that this is a good news for Russia, because a weaker ruble probably is more preferable for economical growth, for export, and Russia is export-oriented country, of course, and there has quite a massive surplus when it comes to foreign trade. And so I think some balance has to be kept there, because if ruble will gain momentum and become a sort of reserve currency in next 10 to 15 years, of course, that will demand some significant changes in many ways here in Russia, and adaptation to this stronger currency. But news itself is interesting, of course, and basically these statements of Sachs, Jeffrey Sachs, did not go against any information that I have shared before in regards to Russian economy or Russian ruble or process of de-dollarization. So good to know, good to know. And finally, dear friends, I'll give you some interesting, I think, news that Russian Ministry of Culture has signed a contract to restore Lenin's mausoleum on Red Square for nearly 20 million rubles, which is about $150,000, according to official tender records. The restoration will address structural damage and update the site for a modern use project. Documents show work is expected to be completed by 2027, and I'm sharing this information just to let you know that, well, there is still mausoleum, by the way, on Red Square. I filmed it whenever I make videos on Red Square, you know, not intentionally, but most definitely mausoleum was in a frame at some point. So you've seen this in my videos. But a question that I have personally is how long this mausoleum gonna exist there in Red Square. I know it's a history. Lenin is a historical figure. No matter what we think about him, he is a historical figure, and part of history. Mausoleum is also on its own become you know, quite a famous landmark. But is it that necessary to keep this mausoleum there? I mean, I have that question. I mean, what the hell, man? I don't think this is I don't know. I don't want to, you know, say too much on this stuff, but maybe sometime in a relatively near future, you know, society will you know, demand Lenin to be buried, and this mausoleum to be either dismantled or to move somewhere else, right? As a, at this point, historical structure, right? But on the Red Square, I don't know. And I'm quite sure many people here in Russia probably are on the same page, but many others probably don't. So therefore, decision has not been made on the matter, and well, some 20 million rubles will be allocated to do some renovation work on that site. Okay, I mean, I think these nuances, local nuances that maybe, you know, don't really have much attention from outside of Russia are still interesting. So that's why I decided to share this news video. And that's it for today's second update. I don't know at what time I'm gonna be at home and when I will upload this video. Maybe it's gonna be like 10 in the evening or 9 or maybe 11. But anyways, I will publish this video because, you know, news hopefully is one that you find interesting, and also scenery, by the way. I mean, you know, I know many members of our community like this walk and talk type videos, so why not to publish it? So this is it for now. Thank you very much for your attention, for your support. Have a wonderful day, great upcoming weekend, and take care. And dear friends, if you want to help me to maintain this project, you can assist through several ways. You can subscribe to my Patreon page, which would be great support, of course, or you can donate through PayPal or Boosty. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Once again, have a wonderful day, great upcoming weekend, and take care.